Hey there, it's Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR. Before we get into the next episode, I wanted to ask that you subscribe to the show. It'll help us get even more unique and interesting guests on the podcast and in turn continue to educate management teams and the growing ecosystem that creates value for fast-growing private and public companies. And while you're at it, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. Very much appreciated.
In our view, if you're going to be the best or you're going to be exceptional, you have to be not a little different, you have to be dramatically different.
Fresh perspectives drives the success of new businesses, but maintaining that perspective over time is the real challenge.
I thought, I think we could just bring a different approach. And so we didn't even really look at the playbook. We didn't really talk to people. We just decided we'd chart our own course based upon some sound business fundamentals, and fortunately, it's turned out pretty well.
Being a public company can be hard. Small missteps can have outsized consequences. I'm Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR. And over the last 25 years, we've helped thousands of companies understand and navigate the stock market and the media. We'll demystify these and other increasingly complex stakeholder groups so you can focus on what you do best, building your company and unlocking your true potential. This is Welcome to the Arena from ICR. Hiring top talent is a proven game plan for any business, but there's untapped power in taking risks, especially on professionals with unconventional strategic backgrounds that keep your company fresh and forward-thinking. Today's guest is no stranger to risks of any kind. He took that leap with his company and it's been thriving for over 30 years. And he continues to take extraordinary leaps today, both inside and outside of the business world. Today, we're sitting down with Larry Connor, an entrepreneur, nonprofit activist, investor, and an adventurist. In business, he's best known for founding the Connor Group, a real estate investment firm that has grown its assets from zero to over $5 billion over a 30-plus year period. The company operates luxury apartment communities in 18 markets and has earned national accolades as a top workplace. Connor has been featured in Forbes and USA Today, among other national publications. During the stress and uncertainty of COVID-19, Larry made almost $2 million on stock market investments, but instead of building his own wealth, he distributed all the money to his frontline associates in the form of bonuses. He also organized a small business loan program that helped Ohio-based entrepreneurs survive the economic downturn. Larry is also a philanthropist, and the Connor Group's success has been critical to those efforts. It helped fund the Connor Group Kids and Community Partners, which has devoted $175 million to nonprofit causes, including the Greater Dayton School, Ohio's first private non-religious school for under-resourced students, which Larry founded in 2022. Kids and Community Partners will devote over $800 million to nonprofit initiatives over the next decade. In 2022, Larry piloted AX-1, the first private mission to the International Space Station. That mission came on the heels of his research work 36,000 feet under the ocean in the Mariana Trench, making him the first human being to reach the deepest part of the ocean and space within a year. Larry followed that feat by leading a team of 4 U.S. Air Force pararescue specialists in a 38,139-foot leap from a hot air balloon, setting a Guinness World Record for the highest halo formation skydive. Larry has also won multiple titles as a professional race car driver. He is an accomplished pilot rated in both helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft, with extensive hours piloting a fighter jet and competing in national and aerobatic competitions. As you can tell, there's a lot to cover here with somebody like Larry, so we're making this interview a two-parter. Be sure to check out next week's episode to get his full, amazing story. Let's enter the arena with Larry Connor. Welcome to the podcast, Larry. That took a while.
Thanks, Tom. Happy to be with you.
We'll get into the Connor Group in a minute, but I really wanted to talk about kind of growing up. You were born and raised in Ohio, a proud Ohioan. Was there a formative experience in your life that kind of resulted in you being such a doer and achiever in your mind?
So probably failure. I was not a good student. Academically, I wasn't very good. So, for example, in the 8th grade, I went to a Catholic school. Our 8th grade had 4 classes, and they put you, the A class were all the really smart, talented people. And the B class were, they were pretty good. Some of the athletes were in there, and the C class were kind of marginal. And then the D class, which I assume meant dummies, that was the class that I was in. So I think through those non-eventful experiences that went through really grade school and high school, I kept learning and trying to figure out my place and my role, and then it started to turn around in college.
Yeah. And then you founded, before the Connor Group, you had formed a few different businesses over the years, right? Orlando Computer Corp and Regional Billing. Tell us about how those experiences led you to the Connor Group.
Yeah. So even in high school, for example, at the junior and senior prom, I didn't go to either one, but I organized the valet parking concession and ran both of those. And we made so much money that I rented a place after the prom and paid for and hosted the after prom parties.
That's unbelievable.
And I had other businesses. I went to Ohio U down in Athens, Ohio.
Yep.
Kind of a little small college town in kind of rural southeastern Ohio. And then there weren't a lot of inexpensive cars down there for the locals to buy. So I started buying cars in like Dayton or Cincinnati. By the way, this is the late 60s. And you could go buy cars for $100 or $200. I'd hire 3 or 4 people along with me to drive all these cars down there. And because you had a supply-demand market where there were tons of demand and very little supply, I take the car I paid $150 for and sell it for $500 or $600 within a week of getting there.
You're literally a used car salesman.
True. By the way, that is an honorable profession.
I agree with you, yeah.
Because when I got out of college, and I did well in college, fortunately, I grew up next door, kind of middle America, with a small business owner. And so right after I graduated from college, I saw him outside one day. And so he goes, "Hey, college boy, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, Mr. Wick, I'm not really sure." He goes, "Well, let me tell you something, son. You don't know anything. If you really want to learn something, go sell something to the public."
Yeah.
And I thought, that seems like good advice. And I had always been interested in cars. So lo and behold, there was a Volkswagen dealership close to my house. Went down there, got a job as a salesman. And yes, I sold both new VWs and used cars. And so you are accurate. I was a used car salesman for 1 year. Then I moved on. But great learning experience about 1, dealing with the public, and 2, the fundamentals of sales.
Yep. And you learned a lot. Larry, what's mind-blowing to me is you had no experience in real estate prior to founding the Connor Group. Why did you choose to get into the industry? What was the opportunity? What was the aha moment when you're kind of like, I'm going for this?
So it's another example of failure leading to success. So I had been in the computer industry for almost 10 years. We had a company that was based in Orlando, Florida. We scaled it to kind of the second largest reseller of local area networks, IBM products, things like that. But we were dramatically undercapitalized. We didn't really understand how to scale a business. And we kept trying and failing and trying different things. Long story short, we ended up closing the doors. We did not go bankrupt, but I think about it as getting both a master's and PhD in how to start a business, how to scale a business, what not to do as well as to do. So at that point, I had bought a few small investment properties on the side. And I thought, this is an interesting industry. I like investing. It doesn't appear to me that the industry is very forward-thinking, unlike the computer industry that was essentially changing every 6 months.
Yeah.
And I thought, I think we could just bring a different approach to both investing in and operating investment type real estate, specifically apartments. And so, yeah, we didn't even really look at the playbook. We didn't really talk to people. We just decided we'd chart our own course based upon some sound business fundamentals. And yeah, fortunately, it's turned out pretty well.
Yeah, well, it sure has. I mean, since the Connor Group was founded, you've built it to, $5 billion in real estate assets. You've generated a mind-blowing 30.4%, to be exact, annual rate of return since inception. How does that performance stack up against kind of the Blackstones and the Brookfields of the world? I mean, it just seems an incredible number.
Yeah, it's an outlier. So if you look in the industry, you're generally going to see kind of high single digits to mid-teens. So let's call it 8 or 9% to 15 or 16%. And you are accurate that over the last 2 years, our average annual IRR after fees to our investors is currently at 30.4. And if you look over the last 10 years, it's been over 31%. In the last 5 years, 38%. And so we think longevity and consistency matters. And so we've continued to adjust whether the market is going up, going down, static. And because we've had a culture and a belief of willingness to be relentless in our pursuits of anything we do, and a willingness to fail. If we fail, own it, fail fast and move forward. And probably at the foundation of that is people, planning, processes, and wrapped around it a somewhat unique culture. I think for us, and by the way, it's a team sport, it's not me. I think that's what spelled the difference.
On the surface, it sounds pretty counterintuitive to found and grow a real estate company by building a team with no real estate experience. But it's clear by the numbers that Larry's formula has not only worked, it's maintained its success over a long period of time. I wanted to know why Larry thinks this strategy has been so successful for the Connor Group.
In our view, if you're going to be the best or you're going to be exceptional, you have to be not a little different. You have to be dramatically different.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to be disruptive. You have to be willing to take a different path. And so we've always had the belief that people are the number one key to success. I know it's kind of vogue now, people say that, but we were saying that 30 or 40 years ago. And that fundamental has not changed. And so we think it's about people who have common beliefs, common personality traits, like they're high achievers, they're organized, they're disciplined, they're focused. They have self-accountability and accountability to others. They can motivate people. They can inspire people. They have what we call grit, which we define as passion and perseverance. So there is, if someone says to us, oh, well, yeah, no, you can't do that, nobody does that, or it's impossible, we're all in, because we're just not going to think with those limitations.
Yeah. When I read the book, the thing that popped into my mind right away was Enron. And I remember reading about Enron, and they had, when you walked in their big fancy building, they had, I think, their mission statement like etched into stone on the floor. But they didn't live that mission statement. And to me, the culture is just like a living mission statement, right? Versus something hanging on the wall that you pass by when you walk down the hall. The culture is a living, breathing, this is the way we do things. You know, you promote people who do well in that culture. Talk about like the difference between like a mission statement and a culture in your mind.
By the way, we have no mission statement.
Yeah.
For that very reason.
That's what's so cool about it.
It's generally etched in stone or hanging on the wall. And that's the last time anybody looked at it, focused on it, or actually acted upon it. So ours are really based upon core values. And so the number one core value is do the right thing, no matter what. And if you don't do that, you're not going to work here. Number 2 is people count. Number 3 is relentless pursuit of excellence in everything we do. Number 4 is think long-term, not short. We would not be a good public company. And number 5, this leadership belief that we call the circle of success, where we set clear expectations, measure individual accountability, reward, and recognition. So that's what we base our culture upon.
In the book, you also talk about non-negotiable things, requirements that everybody has to possess in order to work at the Connor Group. And what I wanted to ask you was, did all of these principles and non-negotiables across all kinds of things like leadership and failure and mistakes and accountability and habits, did that evolve because you were growing so quickly? You had to have an organization in order for this to keep growing and get your head around it and manage it? Or is it so the company can kind of evolve more quickly? You make mistakes, you learn, you evolve. Was it like this in the beginning, or did you just, over a long period of time, kind of put this together in your head and get it down on paper?
No, it's actually a very good question. And so the book is actually an interesting story. So our first director of communication, a fellow by the name of Ryan Ernst, was a former sports reporter for the Cincinnati Enquirer. So he sure as hell didn't have any background in business. But he came to us, did a great job. And so he came to me in 2017 and said, we've got all these beliefs and strategies and thinking, whether it's around decision-making, accountability, planning, leadership. We need to put these down in a book, not only for now, but the future. I mean, I was a little concerned that maybe he thinks I was going to, get hit by the bus, or they were going to stage a coup d'etat and throw me out or something. And I thought, you know what? He's right. And so where did they come from? I think they came from who we are.
Yeah.
And the kind of people that we hired. I think from day one, we just had some beliefs like, we're only going to hire people who have high ethics and integrity. We're only going to hire people who are super positive and can do. We're only going to hire people who are competitive. We're only going to hire people who really believe that getting the right people together and coaching them and developing and rewarding and recognizing. And so that's just the kind of people we hired, and we all grew together. And these beliefs became more and more kind of what defined us.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different things in that book that we can talk about. But one tiny little thing that I think is pretty cool, and I think our listeners would appreciate, is most everyone at the Connor Group uses a pencil. Why do you use pencils?
Yeah, because we believe in pursuits, you may have to erase or change what you did, and that while we have some foundational anchors that we're going to, we don't have a tremendous amount of taboo things that we're not willing to erase, blow up, decide that it's wrong, decide we failed, and as a result, change.
Yeah, I think it's just like, it's a great symbol for kind of what you do every day. Everyone's going to make a mistake, right? So you erase it and you kind of get better and you move on. Another thing I just thought it would be great to touch on is how you reward success in the organization, and a path to partnership where anybody in any role can be a partner at the Connor Group with the associated equity benefits. Talk about the power of that approach and how it makes the organization just completely different and high performing.
So I think it's rooted in our beliefs. We think that you should share the wealth. We think a lot of companies, private companies, make a big mistake in not doing that. So, and we think everybody's important. You'll have some companies who will say that, but saying is one thing. Show me by your actions and deeds that you actually believe that and back that up. So we created a partner program a little over 20 years ago. And we said any person in this organization, whether you work in accounting, recruiting, you're a service technician out in the field, a salesperson, a manager, all the way down to groundskeepers. We have groundskeepers at a lot of our properties. That anybody can achieve this because every role is important. Today, we have some 72 partners from all facets of the business. By the way, interesting side note, there's zero dilution to our investors. All of that ownership comes from my general partner interest. I think that's a great investment in people in the future. And if you really stop and think about it, what can you do by yourself? No matter how hard and how talented you are. But what's the power of 72 partners all working together with the same belief and leveraging that? So simply put, do you want a small pie that you own 100% of? Or do you want a gigantic pie that you own 75%?
Yeah.
We're certainly in the latter group.
Staying fresh in business isn't just about innovation, it's about building a culture that thrives on challenging the status quo. By refocusing to follow the traditional playbook and embracing risk as an opportunity to grow, the Connor Group has driven exceptional returns and empowered its team to contribute to its ongoing success. At Welcome to the Arena from ICR, we're working really hard to bring you exciting guests and great content. If you found this episode insightful, please subscribe to the show on your podcast app and leave us a 5-star rating. The more the show grows, the more interesting voices we can have on the podcast, and in turn, that should demystify a lot of the stakeholders around public companies and soon-to-be public companies. Thank you so much for listening. I want to thank Larry Connor for joining us on the show today. Larry's built a legacy that continues to stand the test of time. But there's more to this story. Be sure to catch part 2 of Larry's interview coming next week, when Larry talks about the impact of the Connor Group and how he and his team use their success to give back and invest in the future. This is Tom Ryan. We'll see you next time back in the arena.
References to specific stocks are not intended to be recommendations for specific trading behavior. Comments presented on this podcast are intended for informational and educational purposes only, and do not represent opinions or recommendations on whether to buy, sell, or hold shares of a particular stock. All investors are advised to conduct their own independent research into individual stocks before making a trading decision. In addition, investors are advised that past stock performance is no guarantee of future price performance.